The final thing I wanted to go ahead.
Oh, it wasn't about that specifically, but about the stigma.
Yeah.
I keep thinking of that, but insurance companies, I think, encourage or cultivate that stigma too. You know, as far as life insurance, oh, you take Prozac, and oh, well, you get a high rate then.
Yep.
That kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
you know,
discrimination in some cases.
It is discrimination. It absolutely is, and there's a big push by psychiatrists and other, you know, and NAMI and people support groups and such for folks that have brain illnesses and psychiatric illnesses. The push is that for insurance, there's a thing called parity. Parity just means equality. They for some reason discriminate against covering psychiatric issues. You know, they'll pay $1 million limit on medical problems. You know, $10,000 on psychiatry or psychiatric illness. What is that? Hello? You know, is the brain somehow separate from the body? I mean, what's the deal here? If it was a stroke, they'd be paying for it. So if it was Parkinson's disease, they'd be paying for it. Parkinson's disease, by the way, is not too unlike a psychiatric illness. It's a chemical imbalance. It's basically some nerve cells that are dying, causing a chemical imbalance in the brain. You know, it's funny, but see, that presents physically. You can see, you know, the symptoms of Parkinson's disease. So maybe we discriminate a little against those folks, but not as near as much as we do against folks where you can't see the issue. I would actually argue that you can't see it, but I think, you know, what it is really is that it's such a slow. These things kind of kick in slowly and gradually, and it's if you took a picture of a person who was not depressed, just their face, and then severely depressed, I bet you anybody in this room could tell which one. Diagnose the person without even, you know. Just like you could diagnose Parkinson's disease, or you would maybe be able to say it's Parkinson's, but you could say, hey, the person's shaking and moving, and they don't want to be moving. You know, there's something wrong. You know, so I guess that's why psychiatric. That's part of the reason. But you're right. The stigma it's pervasive in every aspect. You know, insurance and society, everything. So, you know. One other topic I wanted to cover real quick that I think leads to some stigma is that everybody is fearful that psychiatrists are running around taking people's rights away, okay? Because sometimes we commit patients, right? And I think that, I don't know, maybe people think we're, you know, power hungry. You know, we love that. You know, we would love to run around and, you know, oh, you're going to the hospital now. You said that, you're going to the hospital. You know, first of all, it doesn't work that way. I mean, a psychiatrist doesn't have that power all by themselves. So let me tell you a little bit about how that goes in real life. There are laws in the states, and most of the states in the country, you know, there are laws that are set up to protect both society from folks that have a psychiatric illness and also the person themselves from themselves, okay? So an example might be somebody who is paranoid that somebody's out to kill a family member, okay? And then they start feeling like, I'm going to go take them out before they take my family out, okay? That person's dangerous, right? Would you all agree? Is that a person you want running around the streets? No. Are they likely to go ahead and get treatment on their own? Not at that point, because they don't see that there's anything wrong. To them, it's very real that this person is trying to take out their family. So the courts basically have set up laws so that a family member of that person can go into a psychiatrist and say, Doc, you got to do something. My mom is really having some issues. I don't know what's going on, but here's what she's doing. The psychiatrist hears it, says, boy, this is dangerous. I'll tell you what, you fill out a paper here, and there's a petition that a family member, a friend, or somebody fills out. The psychiatrist fills out a form, a doctor's form, and then it's sent to a judge, and a judge then signs it or doesn't sign it, but usually signs it, and then that's basically an order then for the police to go out, pick up that person, bring him in for treatment. Bring them in for evaluation, not treatment, evaluation. And that could be 72 hours. It's a 72-hour hold. So as you can see right away, is the psychiatrist doing that all by himself? You know, he's not running around ordering this stuff to happen. No, it takes three things. It takes a person to identify a problem, it takes a psychiatrist, and it takes a judge. So there's three people making the decision. When the 72 hours starts, it counts during business hours of the court. So it doesn't count weekends or holidays. So I think people get, you know, they don't realize that and they get ticked about that. But what the evaluation period is, it's time for the usually it's in the hospital. You know, the doctor will bring the patient to the hospital and watch the patient on the unit. If the patient is not In an emergency situation, the doctor can't force treatment on the patient at that point. Only time he can is if that person's getting ready to jump out the window or hurt the nurses or hurt another patient or something like that. Then he can give them medicine to calm them down and keep them from hurting somebody. Otherwise, he can't give them treatment. With the exception of the patient. Of course, the patient says, yeah, okay, I'll grant you that, doc. I'm having some problems. Let me try something. And, then it's more of a voluntary thing. Let's say in the 72 hours, the doctor says, yeah, I think this person has schizophrenia and it's out of control, and the person's refusing treatment, and I do think they're dangerous after the 72 hours is up. It wouldn't be good to just let that person go out and go ahead and hurt somebody, right? So he goes to the judge, fills out some more papers, sends them to the judge. The judge says, okay, come in, on such and such a date, we're going to have a court hearing. The patient stays in the hospital till the court hearing. At the court hearing, the patient has an attorney, gets represented. The doctor has an attorney from the hospital usually, and they both present their cases. Sometimes the patient will talk, and the judge makes a decision. Okay, yeah, you're committed to the care of this doctor for up to 90 days. Usually the first time it's up to 90 days. The doctor then can say, okay, you need to stay in the hospital. We need to start you on treatment. At that point, he's got an order to treat the patient. So that's kind of how it works, okay? It doesn't mean they stay in the hospital 90 days, by the way. It means that's sort of up to the doctor. If the patient's better in a week, they go home in a week, but they still have to see the doctor and stay off drugs and alcohol and that kind of thing. So there's a court-ordered treatment. And it's the court that orders, it's not the psychiatrist. So it protects the patients really from a psychiatrist who, if there were a psychiatrist out there who was power hungry and wanted to order all these people around or whatever, I don't know why. It's a lot of hassle. I would never want to do that if it wasn't absolutely necessary. And it actually is very rare for it to happen, but it's a good thing that it's available if needed.
But does the insurance interfere with your treatment like it does medical doctors a lot of times? Like you can only keep this patient in so long.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think that's a crime too.
Yes. In an everyday situation, let's say it's not an absolute emergency like we just talked about, and that's a good question. When it comes to the absolute emergency, I don't know. I would imagine different insurances are different. I think some insurances just have a maximum. They'll pay you, that's it. You're done after that. But, if it's an emergency, the patient stays in the hospital regardless. So the hospital writes it off or something happens. I don't know. They work out some kind of arrangement. But no, you're right. Let's say it's a situation where the patient is, let's use the same example. This time the person's been ordered to the hospital. They've been there a week. They're starting to get better, but they're not all the way better yet. What insurance companies do is they have what's called diagnostic-related groups, and these are things like if you have schizophrenia, then you get 5 days in the hospital. As if everybody with schizophrenia has exactly the same illness, and it gets better and worse exactly the same times, and every medicine works just exactly the same. That's ridiculous. It's like saying, if you have a heart, they do the same thing with medical illness, though.
Yeah,
but if you have a heart attack, you get so many days. That's it. And if you want more days, you got to fight to get them.
It has to be terribly frustrating.
Yeah, and it's pretty frustrating because hospitals usually have people to try to save their rear ends because doctors just do what they want to do. What's right for the patient. So the person would come around and say, "Doc, you need to discharge this patient tomorrow." I just look at him like, "Okay, well, what are you talking about?" I never tried to argue much with them, but I'd seen physicians, just getting arguments with them. I had one insurance company tell me on a patient of mine recently, we won't cover this medicine, and the only way we'll cover it is if you take them off of the medicine you want to put them on, you take them off of that and put them on this medicine, and then they fail it. They have to fail it, and in other words, get worse. And of course, to fail it takes 8 weeks, 10 weeks, and then they have to fail something else for 8 to 10 weeks, and then we'll cover this medicine. I said, wait a minute. You want me to purposely make my patient worse and let him suffer for 16 to 20 weeks for you to cover the medicine? How would you like if I did that to you? And the lady just, well, you can fax us a form, and that's why I faxed them a form and they covered it. But that kind of stuff, it gets a little ridiculous sometimes. That's pretty much all I have. I was going to summarize it all by saying